It was early morning at the Lake of Three Winds. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but it was already brushing the waters with a serene, shimmering gold. The leaves swayed gently, rocked by a mild breeze. Everything seemed calm, as if the whole world was taking a deep breath before starting the day. In a cozy nest tucked between reeds and dry petals, Mama Mariana was carefully warming her last eggs. She was an experienced duck mother. She had already brought many ducklings into the high world. But something about this clutch felt different. She could feel it. One by one, the eggs began to crack. Tiny beaks appeared, followed by damp feathers and blinking, surprised eyes. Each duckling was beautiful in the mother's eyes, of course, as every mother sees her children. But one of them was simply stunning. Not beautiful in a casual, passing way, but beautiful enough to stop the wind, to make flowers turn, to calm the lake just by reflecting his image. He had light feathers with a faint golden glow, deep and peaceful eyes, and a graceful way of walking, even as a newborn. Mama Mariana looked at him and paused for a moment. "You came from one of my dreams, didn't you?" she murmured, moved. The other ducklings stared at him with curiosity. It wasn't envy, not yet. It was just surprise. Why would a duckling be so different? That first afternoon, while they were learning to swim, the birds by the shore sang a new melody as he passed by. Butterflies hovered near him, as if drawn by some invisible light. And even the old frog, who complained about everything, said, "That one, he's not just a duckling. He looks like something out of a storybook." The beautiful duckling didn't understand. He just was. He didn't think of himself as more or less. He just wanted to swim, play with his siblings, and listen to the stories. The wind whispered through the leaves, but even so, something was starting to form. In the eyes of others, in the whispered conversations, in the way some slowly pulled away. Because sometimes, being too different can be frightening. And the beautiful duckling, without realizing it, began to feel the weight of a glow he never asked to carry. Days passed at the Lake of Three Winds. The sun lingered long in the sky, the floating flowers drifted lazily, and the ducklings grew under Mama Mariana's watchful eye. The beautiful duckling, as they had begun to call him, remained the same, gentle, quiet, kind. He swam with his siblings, ate beside them, laughed at the stories the wind whispered. But even though he hadn't changed at all, everything around him had started to shift. One day, as he tried to play a diving game with his brothers, one of them quickly swam away. "Better not go with him. The dragonflies only follow him." "Now?" "Yeah, and the fish too. Everything around him feels magical." Another one replied with a sad little chuckle. "He's so beautiful. It's like he's not even one of us." The beautiful duckling heard. He lowered his eyes. He didn't understand. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was just born this way. But slowly, he started to notice that the very thing that enchanted others also pushed them away. At the lake, the herons came to admire him, but they never spoke to him. The frogs sang songs with his name, but none wanted to swim by his side. Even the swans, who visited from time to time, would just watch him from afar, as if he were a question no one dared to answer. Even Mama. Mariana seemed puzzled. "My child, you are a gift, but why do you seem so alone?" He didn't know how to answer. All he knew was that, deep inside, there was a silence. One night, when everyone was asleep, the beautiful duckling walked to the edge of the lake. He looked down at his reflection. Yes, he was beautiful. There was no denying that. But was that all? And why did it feel so heavy? That night, the wind told a different story. It spoke of a flower so beautiful that no one dared to touch it. It was admired by all, but never picked, and it died alone. The duckling looked up at the sky. Am I meant to be admired, but never loved? He wondered, his heart aching. And then, for the first time, he cried. And no one saw, not even the wind. The next morning, the Lake of Three Winds looked the same. But inside the beautiful duckling, everything had changed. He swam in silence, apart from the others. His siblings now played without waiting for him. The butterflies that once followed him no longer brought him joy. It was as if everything around him was tied to an image and not to who he was inside. Then, on a golden afternoon, when the sky looked like honey and the wind carried sad stories through the trees, he made a decision. Maybe I need to leave. Not to run away, but to find myself. Mama Mariana froze when he told her. Her eyes welled up. But why, my son? I love you. I know, Mama, but I don't know who I am. Here, I'm just the pretty one. And that's not enough for me. That night, without a fuss, the beautiful duckling followed the trail that led to the other side of the forest. He walked beneath twisted branches, past quiet puddles, and through places he had never seen before. Places without reflections, without water mirrors, where no one knew him. For the first time, he was simply himself. No labels, no lingering. Stairs. Just a duckling walking. On the second night of his journey, he met an old turtle, her shell covered with the marks of time. She glanced at him sideways. You've got the eyes of someone who doesn't want to be looked at. Yeah, I'm tired of being seen and not truly seen. The turtle gave a small smile. Then you've come to the right place. Around here, we're all a bit invisible. And you know, sometimes it's in the silence that we hear ourselves for the very first time. They shared a simple meal and slept beneath the stars. The next morning, the duckling continued on. Along the way, he met all sorts of different creatures. A rabbit, who talked too much to hide his fear. A blind owl who saw everything with her heart. A stray dog who smiled even when he cried. None of them cared about the duckling's beauty, and that was freeing. He began to laugh for real, to hum softly to himself, to ask questions, and to listen to the answers with an open heart. Little by little, the beautiful duckling stopped being just beautiful. He was becoming whole. Three moons had passed since the beautiful duckling left the Lake of Three Winds. In that time, he didn't just walk through forests, mountains, and fields. He walked within himself. And there, in that silent and deep territory, he discovered something he had never seen in the water's mirror. He discovered that beauty without affection is just an empty glow, and that a heart that listens to itself is more beautiful than any golden feather. One morning, as the sun rose behind the hills and painted the sky with shades of orange and longing, the duckling felt the desire to return. I want to look into their eyes and introduce myself again, but this time as I truly am. And so, with calm steps and a peaceful gaze, he returned to the lake. The scenery looked the same. The reeds danced with the wind, the flowers floated on the surface, and the ducklings, now a bit older, swam in distracted circles. It was the middle brother who saw him first. "Is that him?" "He's back." Everyone stopped. The beautiful duckling stood there, but something had changed. His walk was steadier, his eyes deeper. His feathers still shimmered, but in a quieter way, as if the light now came from within. "You seem different," said Mama Mariana, tears in her eyes. "I am, Mama. Now I know who I am." His siblings came closer, a bit unsure. "You're still the most beautiful one of them murmured. The duckling smiled gently. "Maybe, but now that's the smallest part of me." They swam together that afternoon, and for the first time, the beautiful duckling was not admired. He was embraced, not as a reflection, but as someone real. The old frog came to greet him, and a dragonfly landed on his beak without hesitation. No one fell silent when they saw him anymore. On the contrary, everyone wanted to hear him speak, to share his travels, his questions, and the things he had discovered. And the duckling, with joy, shared not only his story, but also the space around him. Because now he knew, being beautiful is a gift, but being true, that's what makes beauty eternal. That night, the entire lake seemed to breathe in peace, and for the first time in a long while, the beautiful duckling fell asleep without wondering if he was loved. He knew he was. Time passed at the Lake of Three Winds. The seasons turned like pages in a book written with wind and silence. The reeds grew tall, the flowers floated gently, and the waters kept reflecting the sky. But now there was something new in the air. A soft calm, as if the lake itself had learned to breathe more slowly. The beautiful duckling was no longer just the beautiful one. Now he was a friend, a listener, a guide. He sat with the little ones to tell stories, swam with those afraid of the water, and cared for the elders with patience. He still shimmered, but no one noticed him just for that. He shone because he loved, because he listened, because he was present. One day, a new clutch of ducklings hatched near the lilies. Among them was a small gray one, shy-eyed, ruffled feathers, avoiding his reflection in the water. He cried in secret. He said he was too ugly to ever be loved. The beautiful duckling gently approached. He sat beside him and stayed silent for a while. Then, looking at the water, he spoke with the softest voice in the world. For a long time, I got lost in the mirror too. The gray duckling looked at him, puzzled. But you're beautiful. Maybe I am. But when no one truly saw me, that beauty only made me feel more alone. He paused, then continued. One day, I discovered that a person's worth doesn't lie in what the world sees, but in what we offer, even when no one is looking. The gray duckling listened closely, and then, without knowing why, he smiled for the very first time. In the days that followed, the two swam side by side, and the entire lake was filled with a new tenderness, because the beautiful duckling had become something greater, a gentle mirror, one that reflected not appearance, but courage, a breath of hope for those who felt like less. And so his true beauty, the kind time cannot erase, lived not in his feathers, but in the stories he told, the hugs he gave, and the smiles he inspired. The Lake of Three Winds was never the same again. And whenever someone felt too small to be seen, someone would say, "Look for the beautiful duckling. He sees with his heart." And there, beneath the quiet sky and the tender stars, new chapter always began. Somewhere inside each of us, there lives a beautiful duckling, a tender, radiant part of ourselves that may have been admired, but never truly understood. And sometimes that brightness makes us feel even more alone. In the story of the beautiful duckling, he was born different. He had a natural glow, a presence that enchanted, but also created distance. People, or other ducklings, saw him with their eyes, but not with their hearts. And how often does that happen to us too? Sometimes we're praised, recognized, even noticed. But it doesn't fill the void. Because what we truly want is not just to be seen, it's to be welcomed. The duckling tried to fit in. He tried to be just one of the flock, but nothing could quiet the ache of not knowing who he was inside. So, with courage, he did what many of us avoid. He left to find himself. That's the first lesson. Self-discovery takes courage. You have to walk away from reflections, applause, and expectations. You have to sit in silence to hear your own voice. Along the way, the duckling met others, none, of whom admired him for his looks, and that was liberating. He could be funny, sad, curious, loving, confused, and still be accepted. And that's when he understood something essential. True beauty isn't about being admired. It's about being whole. When he returned to the lake, he was no longer just the beautiful one. He was someone who had listened to himself, learned to love, and was now ready to see others with that same kindness. He became a gentle mirror, not the kind that judges, but one that reflects hope. He began to offer something rare, true presence, and everyone around him could feel it. That's the second lesson. When you know who you are, your light becomes warmth, not just sparkle. People won't be drawn to you just for admiration. They'll come because they feel safe, because your beauty feels like home. Your glow stops being something that dazzles and becomes something that comforts. And then comes the most beautiful part. The duckling finds another duckling, shy, gray, too afraid to look at his own reflection. And instead of repeating the old story, he breaks the cycle. He doesn't let the other get lost in the mirror. That's the third lesson. Those who heal help others heal. Those who find themselves become guides. The story of the beautiful duckling is a gentle invitation to stop chasing validation in the eyes of others, to go beyond appearance, to listen to our own truth, and most of all, to be the gentle mirror in someone's life, for those who still haven't discovered their worth.